The man who is on your birth certificate is not your biological father. That you are heartbroken that Ms. Sams claims you are not her father. You know you are her biological father. Why do you need the court to order this test?
And my uncle said to me, "How's your daddy doing since he got out of prison?" "What do you mean? My dad's never been in prison." And he said the other man's name. "Okay, well, I'm going to see Mr. Doris tomorrow, so I'll talk to him about it." And I said, "What is this that I hear about this other man?" And he said, "I never want to hear that name out of your mouth again."
And this was the first time ever in your life that you heard anything like this?
When my sister and I were both pregnant at the exact same time, typically only be if we had the same mother and father. And my mom laughed about it. Well, you know, there was this time in my life and, you know, things were crazy.
Biological father.
Never really talked about it. Like, just kind of dropped it.
But she wasn't.
She did, but right before she died, she said, "I think that you need to have this done." So why?
The courtroom is quiet but heavy, the kind of quiet that carries years of unanswered questions. Diane walks in already emotional because for her this is not just a legal request, it is a lifetime of doubt finally being spoken out loud. For 36 years she has believed one man was her father. His name is on her birth certificate. He was there the day she was born. He held her as a baby, raised her, loved her, and never once questioned that she was his child. To him, this case should not even exist. He is heartbroken that the woman he raised is now asking the court to prove something he believes has always been true. But Diane is here because something inside her has never fully settled. It began years ago, quietly, almost accidentally. At a family gathering on her mother's side, a conversation turned casual, then strange. An uncle asked her how her father was doing since getting out of prison. Diane laughed it off at first, confused, because the man she called her father had never been to prison. When she questioned it, her uncle casually mentioned another man's name, as if it were obvious. The words hit her hard. She told herself it was just talk, maybe drinking, maybe a misunderstanding. She planned to ask her father about it the next day. When she did, his reaction shut everything down. He told her never to say that name again. The conversation ended right there. No explanation, no reassurance, just a firm refusal to even acknowledge the question. Diane tried to move on, but the seed had already been planted. Years later, the doubt grew stronger during a strange coincidence. Diane and her sister were pregnant at the same time. Blood work from their pregnancies showed similarities that usually appear when siblings share both the same mother and father. It unsettled her enough to ask her mother directly. Her mother laughed it off, brushing it away with vague comments about a wild time in her life, but still insisted that the man who raised Diane was her biological father. Nothing was ever clearly explained, and once again the conversation faded into silence. Then came the moment that changed everything. Before Diane's mother passed away, she said something that Diane could not forget. She told her that if she had doubts, she needed to get a paternity test. She told her she deserved to know the truth. Those words stayed with Diane long after her mother was gone. To her, they felt like permission, almost a confession without words. The man she calls her father sits in court listening to all of this, visibly shaken. He insists he has never had any doubt. He remembers being at the hospital when Diane took her first breath. He signed the birth certificate. He has photographs of them together, father and daughter moments frozen in time. To him, these memories are proof enough. Love, presence, and commitment should outweigh rumors and paperwork. But Diane explains that love is not the issue. She knows he was there. She knows he loved her. That is not what she is questioning. What she needs is truth, for her own peace, for her children, and for her health. She reveals that she has been diagnosed with a serious autoimmune disease, one that can be genetic. She needs to know which side of her family it comes from so that others can be aware and tested if necessary. This is not about rejection. It is about clarity. As the discussion continues, more inconsistencies surface. Dates don't line up. Her father struggles to remember exactly when he married her mother. Diane produces marriage certificates and divorce records that show her mother was still legally married to another man close to the time Diane would have been conceived. Every document deepens her confusion. To her, these gaps are not small mistakes. They are pieces of a puzzle that no longer fit the story she has been told her entire life. After her mother's death, Diane found something else that disturbed her deeply. She discovered paperwork showing that her birth certificate had been amended when she was a baby. No one had ever mentioned this to her. Her father had never been notified. No explanation was written, just evidence that something had been changed. To Diane, this felt like one more silent decision made about her life without her knowledge. Her uncle takes the stand and confirms what Diane has long suspected. He believes his sister was already pregnant before she married the man who raised Diane. He admits he cannot prove it, but he remembers another man in her life before the marriage. He remembers conversations, timing, and a sudden move across the country shortly after Diane was born. Everything adds weight to the doubt Diane has carried for years. The courtroom becomes emotionally charged. Diane makes it clear that she does not want the other man to be her father. She is not searching for someone new. She is searching for the truth. She explains how confusing it is to live with unanswered questions about your own identity, how painful it is to feel like something about your life may have been hidden from you. She is not trying to hurt the man who raised her. She is trying to understand herself. The judge listens carefully, weighing love against evidence, emotion against facts. In the end, the judge explains that the court exists for moments exactly like this, when questions are too heavy to carry alone, when truth is the only way forward. Based on the testimony, the documents, and the statements made before Diane's mother passed away, the judge orders a paternity test. As court adjourns, both Diane and the man she calls her father are overwhelmed. Diane feels scared, hopeful, and terrified all at once. She believes the truth will finally bring peace, but she knows it could also change everything. Her father feels crushed at the idea that biology could erase decades of love in a single sentence. He says deep down in his heart, he knows she is his daughter. They return to court for the results, both bracing themselves. Diane says she hopes he is her father, but the unanswered questions have never stopped haunting her. The judge prepares to read the DNA results, reminding them that the purpose of truth is not to destroy families, but to give them clarity on how to move forward. The envelope is opened. The result is final, undeniable, and devastating. The man who raised Diane is not her biological father. The room fills with emotion. Apologies spill out through tears. Diane breaks down, not because she feels unloved, but because the truth hurts even when you ask for it. Her father is shattered. He knew in his heart what the answer would be, and yet hearing it spoken aloud feels like losing her all over again. But even in the pain, something powerful remains. He clutches a photo of them together, holding it to his chest. The judge points out what everyone can see but cannot measure with DNA. Love does not disappear because of biology. In his heart, Diane will always be his little girl. And in that moment, Diane holds his hand, supporting him, just as he has supported her for her entire life. The truth does not erase the past. It simply opens a new chapter. A chapter where Diane finally knows who she is, and where both of them must decide how to carry that truth forward together. After the result is spoken, the courtroom feels smaller, like the walls have closed in on everyone inside. Diane keeps apologizing, even though no one has accused her of doing anything wrong. Her tears are not just grief, they are release. Years of doubt have finally turned into certainty, and certainty hurts more than questions ever did. The man who raised her is struggling to breathe through the moment. His pain is quiet but heavy. He says he knew in his heart, yet hearing it confirmed feels like a wound opening all over again. The judge speaks gently, explaining that truth is not meant to punish but to give direction. 36 years of love cannot be erased by a test result. Biology may answer one question, but it does not define every bond. Diane listens, nodding, holding the man's hand, realizing that even though the truth has changed her story, it has not changed her love for him. In that moment, father and daughter are still connected, not by blood, but by shared history, sacrifice, and care. As emotions slowly settle, the courtroom transitions into another case, but the heaviness remains. A young woman named Dawn steps forward, carrying a different kind of burden. Her story is about a 2-year-old boy named Dior and a question that has shaped every moment of his short life. Dawn says she knows exactly who her child's father is. She remembers the night. She remembers the timing. To her, there is no doubt, but the man she names as the father, D'Angelo, denies it completely. D'Angelo explains that he has not been involved in Dior's life because he believes the child is not his. He says the dates do not line up. He says he was out of town during the time Dawn claims she conceived. He insists he even offered to pay for a DNA test, but nothing ever happened. From his perspective, he is being accused of abandoning a child that may not even be his. Dawn tells a very different story. She says she tried to get a DNA test through child support when Dior was only 6 months old, but D'Angelo never showed up. She says she has been raising Dior alone, juggling school, work, and motherhood, while feeling judged and dismissed. To her, this case is not about proving a man wrong. It is about securing a future for her son. As they argue back and forth, it becomes clear their relationship was never stable. They knew each other growing up. There were feelings, misunderstandings, and blurred lines. Dawn admits she was seeing other people around the same time, but insists she knows which encounter led to her pregnancy. D'Angelo responds by presenting a calendar, marked with dates that he says prove he was not even in the same state when Dawn claims conception happened. He explains he was on probation at the time and legally unable to travel. The courtroom fills with tension as timelines clash. Dawn says she spent the night with him on the date she was given by doctors. D'Angelo says that is impossible. He brings up a medical issue, a serious surgery that affected his fertility, adding another layer to his doubt. He says he is not refusing responsibility out of fear, but out of uncertainty. He insists that if the child is proven to be his, he will step up fully. Photos are shown. One shows D'Angelo holding baby Dior in the hospital. The image looks like a proud father. D'Angelo explains he came to the hospital at Dawn's request, confused, emotional, and caught off guard. He says being there does not mean he accepted paternity. Dawn says actions speak louder than words. Giving the baby his last name, showing up, holding him, all of it meant something to her. D'Angelo's mother testifies as well. She confirms her son was not in town during the date Dawn claims conception occurred. Still, she explains that despite doubts, she tried to be supportive because the child mattered more than the conflict. To her, this was about compassion, not conclusions. The judge listens carefully, cutting through emotion to focus on facts. In the end, only one thing can resolve the dispute. The DNA results are red. The answer is clear. D'Angelo is Dior's biological father. The courtroom reacts instantly. Dawn is emotional but relieved. Years of being doubted have finally ended. D'Angelo is stunned. His first words are not anger or denial, but a simple question. He asks to see his son. In that moment, the judge points out what truly matters. The truth has given Dior something priceless, a confirmed connection to his father and a chance at a relationship moving forward. The judge urges them both to let go of resentment. The past arguments no longer matter. What matters is the child and the opportunity to build something better from this point on. Dangelo promises to take responsibility. Dawn, though still hurt, knows this is the outcome she came for. The courtroom then moves to another deeply emotional case. A young mother named Dena appears with her baby daughter, Kaya. This case is different because the alleged father is no longer alive. He was killed just months after Kaya was born. His mother, Carolyn, is here instead, carrying the weight of grief and unanswered promises. Dena explains that she loved him. He was her first love, her best friend before anything else. Though their relationship had ups and downs, she says he accepted the baby when he was calm, only doubting paternity during moments of anger. She feels judged and hurt by his family, especially because Kaya was left out of his obituary. To her, that omission felt intentional, like erasing her child from his life and legacy. Carolyn explains her side through tears. She says her son had doubts because people told him Dena may have been seeing someone else. Before he died, he asked his mother to promise that a DNA test would be done. Carolyn says she is not here to attack Dena. She is here to keep a promise to her son. She admits she left the baby's name out of the obituary, not out of cruelty, but out of fear. Fear of hurting her own mother if the child turned out not to be his. Emotions rise quickly. Voices overlap. Pain spills out raw and uncontrolled. The judge steps in firmly, reminding everyone that this courtroom is not a place for threats or insults. It is a place for truth and accountability, especially when a child's identity is at stake. Carolyn says something that shifts the room. She promises that if the child is proven to be her son, she will correct the obituary so that one day Kaya can read her father's name and see her own listed beneath it. It is a quiet but powerful commitment, one rooted in dignity and responsibility. Because the alleged father has passed away, the court uses a different method. DNA is taken from his parents to determine whether there is a biological connection to Kaya. The process is explained carefully. Everyone waits in silence. When the results are read, the answer is devastating. There is no biological relationship between Kaya and the deceased man's parents. The percentage is 0. The truth lands hard. Dena reacts with anger and pain, feeling exposed and judged all over again. Carolyn breaks down, overwhelmed by grief layered with relief and guilt. The judge tries to restore calm, explaining that no one in that room intended to hurt the child. But the truth must be faced. Kaya will grow up knowing clarity instead of confusion. The judge reminds Dena that motherhood now means choosing her words and actions carefully, because her child will one day look to her for understanding and strength. The courtroom slowly empties, each family carrying a different version of truth. Some leave with answers they wanted. Others leave with answers they feared. But every case shares one thing in common. The truth changes lives, not always gently, but always permanently. And for the children at the center of these stories, truth is the foundation on which their futures will be built. As the final emotions spill out, the courtroom becomes a mirror of real life, messy, unresolved, and deeply human. No one leaves untouched. In every face there is loss, relief, confusion, or acceptance, sometimes all at once. What began as questions about biology has turned into something much heavier, questions about identity, responsibility, and what it truly means to be family. Dena stands shaken, holding her baby tighter than before. The result has taken something from her, not just a name, but a future she imagined for her daughter. She feels judged, misunderstood, and cornered by a truth she did not expect. Her anger is loud because her pain is deep. She feels like everyone is looking at her as if she did something wrong, as if her child's worth has somehow been reduced by a test result. The judge reminds her, firmly but calmly, that none of this defines the value of her daughter. Kaya is still a child deserving of love, stability, and protection. The responsibility now rests fully on Dina to shape that future without bitterness. Carolyn, the grandmother who came to honor a promise to her son, sits quietly, broken in a different way. She has lost her child, and now she has lost the possibility of a connection she was preparing herself to accept. The DNA result brings clarity, but clarity does not erase grief. She explains that her actions were never meant to harm a baby. Everything she did was guided by fear, fear of reopening wounds for her own mother, fear of claiming something that might not be true. Now that the truth is known, she must live with it even though it hurts. The judge speaks about how death complicates truth. When someone is no longer alive to speak for themselves, the unanswered questions become heavier. Promises become burdens. Families are left to carry decisions they never wanted to make. The court exists to settle facts, but healing is something no ruling can force. As the final case ends, the judge reflects on the pattern that has unfolded throughout the day. Adults come to court carrying years of confusion, secrets, and unresolved pain, but the ones most affected are the children. Children inherit stories they did not write. They grow up inside truths they never asked for. The judge urges everyone present to remember that how these truths are handled will shape those children far more than the results themselves. Diane's story lingers in the room even as the cases move on. A woman who came searching for answers did not lose her father, even though biology said otherwise. She gained clarity, but she also gained something unexpected, proof that love can survive truth. The man who raised her did not walk away. He did not reject her. He stayed, holding onto the bond they built over decades. That moment stands in contrast to the fear many people carry, that truth will destroy everything. Sometimes it changes things, but sometimes it reveals what is strongest. Dawn and D'Angelo leave with a different kind of future ahead of them. Their conflict, loud and bitter at times, now has no excuse to continue. The child at the center of their argument has been given certainty. Dawn feels validated, but also vulnerable, knowing co-parenting will require more patience than anger. D'Angelo feels exposed, forced to confront responsibility he tried to delay. But the truth has also given him something he did not realize he wanted, a confirmed place in his son's life. The judge reminds him that being present matters more than any argument that came before. In all three cases, one truth becomes clear. Secrets do not protect families. Silence does not preserve peace. Avoiding the truth only delays pain and passes it forward. Each adult in that courtroom had their own reasons for doubt, denial, or fear. Some were trying to protect themselves. Some were trying to protect others. But in the end, truth demanded to be heard. The courtroom empties slowly. There is no applause, no celebration, just quiet footsteps and heavy thoughts. People leave knowing more than they did when they arrived, but also feeling the weight of what that knowledge brings. Answers do not always come with comfort. Sometimes they come with responsibility. For the children whose names were spoken, whose lives were discussed before they could even understand, the hope is that one day they will grow up knowing their stories were not hidden from them. That even when the truth was painful, the adults in their lives chose honesty over convenience. That matters more than bloodlines or paperwork. In the end, the court does not define family. It only reveals facts. What people choose to do with those facts determines whether families fracture or heal. Some bonds are built by DNA. Others are built by time, sacrifice, and love. And some truths, once spoken, force everyone to decide who they want to be moving forward. The courtroom doors close, but the real work begins outside. Living with the truth, explaining it to children, choosing love without lies. And learning that identity is not just about where you come from, but how you are cared for, protected, and valued once the truth is known.